Endurance Junkie Podcast, episode 36. Hey Junkie, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Endurance Junkie Podcast, the show where I will be interviewing some of the fastest, smartest, and most inspiring people active in the endurance world today. And I'm super excited to be joined by Anna Frost today. Anna grew up in New Zealand, playing field hockey mostly, before accidentally making the switch to trail running in 2004. She immediately fell in love with the sport and knew straight away that she wanted to pursue it further professionally. She has gone on to race all over the world, winning some of the most prestigious trail and ultra runs, but has also had to deal with her fair share of injuries, which we will discuss in more detail in the show. Anna, thanks for taking the time to chat here today. Now, for those of us who don't know you, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your sporting background growing up in New Zealand?
Well, I grew up in New Zealand and played pretty much every sport there was to play when I was younger, because that took me out of the classroom. So I really didn't care what it was as long as I was playing outside. And I think I learned a lot about team sport and individual sport in that time, but I really fell in love with field hockey. And so I played that for most of my life. With obviously you're getting very fit in field hockey, so I was able to join in with the school cross countries when they needed an extra person. And so, sport basically ruled my life as I was growing up.
Field hockey is pretty popular in New Zealand, right?
It is, yeah. Most girls' schools definitely do, but a lot of people play. I think it's great. It teaches you a lot of things. It's like you learn to be part of a group. You learn to work with other people. You learn to look ahead and see what will happen if you do that, the consequences of doing that. And it gives females especially, I think, a chance to be really competitive together.
Yeah. Were you able to reach a certain level there in field hockey?
Yeah, I played a lot of different levels of hockey, like regional hockey and some national development levels. I played club, I played school. Basically, if there was a team to play for, I played for.
Yeah. So how did you end up in ultra running then?
Well, that was a bit of a mistake, really, or not a mistake, but a fluke, or by chance that I joined in with the National Mountain Running Championships, and only because my club was organising the race and the course, and I'd set out some of the course, and a friend just said, "Why don't you race?" So I decided, okay, that sounds fun, and then I qualified for the World Mountain Running Champs in Italy. And I got to Italy and just fell in love with the sport. I fell in love with the mountains, with the travel, with the people. The course was the most brutal course I've ever done in my life. And I saw that there was more than just that one race, that there was a whole circuit, a whole series of running in the mountains, and that if you put some hard work into it, you could make it into a lifestyle. So that's what I set out to do. And it took, I spent the first maybe 5 to 6 years doing the shorter mountain running, which was between 8 to 10 kilometers just straight up a mountain, and you finish at the top.
Okay.
And then that developed into doing some more sky running marathons. And then just a couple of years ago, I think it was 2011 or 10, I started with my first 50 miler. And since then, I've really enjoyed doing the 50 mile distance, and I've tried 100. So I wouldn't say that I'm a very experienced ultra runner, but I'm learning every day.
When you qualified for those world champs in 2004, was that just purely on the fitness that you had from playing hockey, or were you just running as well at the time?
I think it was a bit of both. Like, I was very strong from hockey. You get an incredible leg strength, and that's what you need in mountain running. So I think one, that I was strong from that, and two, I had started training a little bit in triathlon while I was at university, and so I had started doing some more specific training for speed on the flat. And so I think both of those things, the strength and the speed, really helped for the short distance mountains.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, you started ultra running then. You fell in love with the sport in Italy. What do you like about it that you can't find in other sports?
In running, you mean?
Yeah, in ultra running, in mountain running, in trail running.
Well, I think, with ultra running, with any sort of running, even if you're just running to the top of a mountain, the sense of achievement is huge. Like you get to actually run to that place that you want to go, and it's all by your own power. It's like your mental willpower to get there and your physical ability to get there. And I think that's really rewarding, whether you've just run, even if it's 2 kilometers to the top of your little hill behind your house, or if it's you've run 100 miles in a big loop around a mountain. I think both can be just as rewarding. And I think it's the sense of going somewhere, of getting somewhere by foot, which is pretty appealing.
And that's like an achievement or a fulfillment that you couldn't find in team sports like hockey.
Yeah, I think, well, with hockey or with any sport where you're on a field, like, you've got so many limitations. You've got a square that you have to run around. You've got a goal that you've got to shoot for. You've got all the rules about where you can and cannot go. And so I think it's very restricting. Whereas with running, it's a lot more versatile. Running in the mountains or trails, it's a lot more versatile, and you can really make it what you want to make it.
Yeah. But has there been anything that you took from those years playing hockey that made you a stronger runner?
Well, I think apart from the physical fitness that I still have in my legs, I've got very powerful legs, and I probably owe that to hockey. I think just having the fun in sport, it's always reminded me that sport is about having fun, no matter which sport it is. And so I guess I try to take that into every event that I do.
Yeah. All right. So you said you started with the shorter distance races and then slowly built up to those 50 milers, and you completed one 100 miler. What has been your biggest accomplishment so far in trail running?
I find that really hard to answer because I've been extremely lucky that I've been able to travel around a lot of the world, see the most incredible places through trail running. And so I think just being part of it and being sort of absorbed into the trail running community has been a huge accomplishment. And there's been so many races where I've felt, oh yeah, that was great. For example, the marathon in Nepal, the Everest Marathon, it was pretty amazing to finish that, but probably more so because it was an amazing place to go to. Finishing the Bear 100 this year was pretty huge. I didn't know if I'd ever be able to get a 100 miler done, and so I was happy to finish that. But there's been so many races that whether it's been a good race or a bad race, I've always learned something. So I think I couldn't choose one single one.
Yeah. So I guess it's more about, memorable ones than actually big accomplishments or big wins.
Yeah.
Okay. I think one thing that also defined your career a couple of years ago was that you suffered from Female Athlete Triad. Can you explain what that is, how it affected you, and what you did and maybe still do to keep it under control?
Yeah, so, it affects different women in different ways, but to put it simply, it's basically that you lose weight or you overtrain, and that leads to a lack of iron in the system, and a lack of other nutrients, hormones, and then basically you go into, you cease to have your period, your monthly period, and then often what happens is then your bones get weak and break, so stress fracture. And it's just a vicious cycle that's very hard to get out of. And it happens in different ways. Some people get one or the other, but I think in running, a lot of women struggle with their image. They feel that they need to be much skinnier or slimmer than they are to be strong and fast in the mountains or on the trails, and that's not always true. There's a certain line where you cross over and you become strong for maybe a short time, but then you're going to do a lot of damage in the long run. So when it happened to me, I guess I got injured and I didn't give myself enough rest and time. I went into a pretty dark space, well, physically for sure, but mentally as well. But it took me a while to sort of see the light again after that and realize that my body was far more important to keep healthy than running was. And so I stopped running for a while. I got my head in a nice place, and then basically it was just about redefining what running meant to me, that running was just running, and if I had it or not, it didn't matter, but I was still the person I was. So it was more, I think for me, it was more having the mental acceptance of what running was, but physically keeping it under control by maintaining a good, healthy fat diet. So with peanut butters and avocado, good oils in my diet. And I think those sort of things really help regulate your hormones and keep that under control. And it's just keeping an eye on your training. Are you doing too much? Is your heart rate staying really high even at nighttime and in the morning? Are you sore all the time? Are you taking a break every, like a proper training, rest and recovery after you've had a hard block of training? So it can be very hard. It's a really complicated thing. And I often say to friends that I know are struggling with it that it's good to go and see a sports psych. There's nothing wrong with going to a sports psychologist. They can, talk to you about what the weaknesses are or how you can overcome those weaknesses in a really easy way. And for sure I did that, and it really helped, and it will continue to help forever. So, I encourage women to shut out, talk about it, and seek help for it straight away.
Yeah, definitely. Mental coaching is becoming more and more important in all types of sports. Was it so difficult for you in the beginning because you didn't really were able to pinpoint it as the female athlete triad?
First of all, I guess I was in denial, which probably most people would be at the start. I just felt like I could keep pushing through, which I tried and tried and tried, and obviously just made it worse and worse and worse. And also I feel that it's been really taboo for a long time, that for some reason women feel like they can't speak about it and speak about their issues, and men for that sake as well, that everyone should be able to speak about what's going on, and if they've got a problem, then ask. There's so many people out there that have experienced that and dealt with that, and so why not learn from each other and give each other a bit of a helping hand? So yeah, it was hard, but now I think women are starting to talk a lot more. You can see a lot more articles and magazines and online about women talking and asking, which is really great.
Yeah. Do you have any resources where female athletes can go and find out more?
Well, there's I've got a tab on my blog post, which is Frosty's Footsteps at WordPress, and there's a spot on there. It's called Shout It Out Girls, and basically you can post your questions there and other girls can answer, and I can try and answer if I've experienced that. But it seems like a really nice place where you can put your questions and women can just answer with a professional or personal advice when they want. So it's quite a nice way to talk about it without the big noise.
Okay, well, I'll definitely put those links in the show notes. Why do you think trail running and ultra running is booming right now?
I think running's very accessible to everyone. I would have said that more so maybe 5 or 10 years ago, when running really was just running, when you just needed a pair of shoes. Now it's getting a little more involved and extreme with hydration packs and all sorts of amazing gear. So it's not as cheap and easy as it may have been before, but in general, it's a pretty easy thing to be able to put on your shoes and run out of your front door. Whether you live in a city or in the country or in the mountains, you can still go out and do it and find some sort of reward for yourself out there.
Yeah, for some reason, still a lot of people stick to the main roads. think entrance for half marathons have never been so big. But yet trail running is still a bit lacking behind.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of issues with trail running that if you run on a road, you are more likely to know where you are. It's maybe a little safer at night times or in the winter when it's dark or cold. And often trails can be out in the bush, and I know for sure a lot of women are scared to run on their own out there. So, I mean, one thing is to find a group of girls and guys to go out and run with, or definitely take a good head torch, take a little sounder or alarm if you've got one of those, if that's going to make you feel more comfortable. And I think it's just a matter of giving it a go and realizing that, oh yeah, this is actually really nice and not dangerous at all.
You've been involved in the sport for almost 10 years now. How have you seen it change?
Yeah, it's definitely changed from just being running to being a professional sport now in trail and ultra running, and the levels are definitely increased of competitiveness. There's definitely more money getting pushed into the sport. There's a lot more sponsors and branding getting put on each event, and also a lot more series and businesses promoting the races. So it's much more business-like now than it was before, which is good and bad in lots of different ways. People have their own reasons for racing. So yeah, it's exciting that it is developing so much. I just hope that it doesn't develop so much that it turns into just a business, that we still race for the pure trail running values.
Yeah, I guess for a lot of people, it still remains a challenge to see if they can do that 50 miler or that 100 miler. Yet for pros like yourself, isn't it frustrating that like a lot of races don't even offer any prize money?
For me, it's not, because I've never raced for the money. So if there's money there or not, it doesn't really influence. What I like to race for is that I'm going to race on a really nice course, that I'm going to gain the sense of achievement of completing that course, whether it's really hard or really beautiful, or I meet some fantastic people along the way, or I travel to somewhere new. That's the key for me with racing. There has to be a balance, though, in the sport. So if there's a company putting on a race and they're earning a lot of money out of that race, they need to give back. They need to give back to the elite runners. They need to give back to all the other runners, whether that's, everyone gets a prize at the end, whether it's a hoodie or a nice mug, coffee mug, or whether it means that the elite athletes get an invite to the race, or some accommodation or some travel funds. And most importantly, for me, it's important that the organisers of that race give back to the community where the event is. So they do trail maintenance, or they give some money to the local school to rebuild their playground, or give to a local running club to promote that club and develop the sport in their area. So for me, the money needs to go to the community first and foremost.
Is that something that you see happening more often?
No, it's not, and that's something that I get frustrated with, that I see more businesses pocketing money than giving money to communities. And so I worry about where the trail running values are in that.
Yeah, I guess that's a problem that a lot of these smaller sports have when they get bigger. How do you see the future of trail running in the next 5 years?
I see it splitting in different ways. I see trail racing, I'm going to call it, where it becomes very, very specific to prize money, to sponsors, to teams, very high competitiveness, but for reasons that I wouldn't necessarily see are very valuable, like a real passion. Why would you be racing that? Is it just for the money or for the promotions or the media? And I also see the other way of like maybe more original trail running, where people are looking for their own challenge. So whether they're going to cross the Grand Canyon or on their own, or whether they're going to cross the Appalachian Trail on their own, or go for a run with a group of their running club around Mont Blanc over 3 days. So I still see that there's going to be trail running, but in very different ways. One more elite and one more free.
Yeah. What side would you be on then?
I think I'm going to head towards the more freedom.
Good one. Now, would you be able to live like the lifestyle that you have now without the support of Salomon, for example, where you work as a brand ambassador?
Yeah, I think so. When I started the sport, I would go home and work for 6 months and earn as much money as I could, and then I'd head out to Europe and race for 6 months and just sleep in my tent in a little campsite. So, I mean, it's possible. You don't have to be a professional to follow a trail running circuit or to travel at all. You don't need to be rich. And the support I've had from Salomon is, of course, I would not change that for the world. And it's made my days incredibly rewarding, being able to follow the trail running circuit. But I think everyone can do it if they really put their mind to it.
Yeah, cool. Do you have some useful tips maybe for people who want to give it a try?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, it's good to get a good pair of trail running shoes. There's nothing worse than heading out on a sort of technical trail with just some road running shoes. Your feet can take a big beating, as well as your ankles, if you're not careful with the right shoes. So I think, there's hundreds and hundreds of trail running shoes out there that would be good for every foot. So you just have to go and try the ones that suit you the best. And then once you've got a good pair of shoes, it's just a matter of finding some friends and going and having fun on the trails and starting easy. You can't go by mileage anymore on the trails. You need to go by time, because if you try to compare your half marathon time to a half marathon in trails, it's going to be a lot slower. So you really need to just say, okay, I'm going to run for half an hour on a trail today, and do that. Don't think about how long that would be on the road. Just give it a go. Try new stuff. Try running on technical things. For me, I always found that running on a beach is very good for ankle and body stability, just to get yourself used to running on the technical trails.
So I think there's a difference in training between, for road races than it is for trail running?
Yeah, sure. First of all, mentally, it's very, very different for me. Running on a road is quite hard because it's one motion, and it seems to take forever in my mind. Whereas on the trails, my mind is taken away to the beauty around me, to the sounds around me, and so that makes the day on the trail go a lot quicker. And then it's just different in terms of your muscle and body use. Like you're using a lot of different muscles when you're on the trails, because you've got to be so responsive. Whereas when you're on the road, it's kind of straight ahead.
So do you do any gym work?
Yeah, I do a lot of cross training. I love cycling. I love swimming. I do a lot of yoga and Pilates and core strength. I think all of those things can really be beneficial. I've never felt that just having strong legs helps. You need to have a totally strong body to keep your running technique really good, even when you're really tired.
Yeah. Do you have some tips on managing your effort then on race day? Because, going for 50 miles, 100 miles, it's totally different than just a marathon.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's really, really hard when you first do it, because you don't know how long it's going to take you, or how much your body is going to hurt in in those later stages of the race. So I think definitely in your first 100 mile or 50 mile, then it's probably better to start nice and steady and be patient, be consistent at the start. And if you're feeling good near the end, then you can crank it up a bit at the end. But I think you won't enjoy it if you go out as hard as you can and blow up with 20 miles to drag yourself in.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good, crank it up in the last 2 miles of a 100-miler.
Yeah, why not?
What's next for you? What do you have on your bucket list for the next couple of years?
Yeah, so I'm just finishing the season in America now. There's one more race in San Francisco, so I'll give that a go. And then I go home to New Zealand finally after 10 months on the road. And then I'll have a big break over summer in New Zealand. So I chase the sun over summer to summer. Yep. There's a lot of things that I want to achieve. Most of it is travel. That's, I think, my biggest passion. So often choosing a place to travel to and then finding a really inspiring race there is how I work. I've never really had a bucket list of races that I dream to do. I always say I've always got an open door where if someone tells me about a really nice race that's on and it looks good, then I say, okay, well, I'll do that. It's funny, I've never really dreamed to be where I am now. So I just really appreciate and am grateful for every opportunity I'm given. So I try not to just plan too much of races that I want to achieve, but rather enjoy being excited about a new event that's coming up.
But you do plan a racing season? Yeah,
I try to plan a racing season. I don't think I've ever pulled off a planned racing season. It always seems to change. Mm-hmm. But in general, like next year I'll be doing some of the sky running races. I'd love to get into Hard Rock 100, but that's all down to the lottery, which will be down in a couple of weeks. So I've got my fingers crossed for that. There's a few projects that I want to complete next year. There's one on Nolans, which is the 14ers up in Colorado. There's a lot of places I'd like to go. I'd love to travel to Japan. I'd love to go Norway, Greenland, Iceland. I'd love to go to South America. So there's lots of places that I need to find some really inspiring races.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'd love to invite you to Belgium, but unfortunately we don't have any mountains. We don't have any trails. So, fortunately for that. Sorry?
I'm sure you've got some nice flat trails if I wanted to work on my speed.
Yeah, we have a couple of those. Yeah. All right. How can people get in touch with you, Anna?
They can go to my blog site, which is Frosty's Footsteps, and on there is my email address that they can contact me at. They can go to the Shout It Out to the Girls to post their questions about Female Athlete Triad or anything to do with girls and running. And I'm on Facebook as well, on Anna Frost on the athlete page. So all of those places are good places.
All right, cool. I'll put those links in the show notes. Feel free to give some love to your sponsors.
Yeah, well, without Salomon, I wouldn't be where I am. They've been incredible support crew, obviously as a sponsor, but also as traveling friends and family. We're all very close. We've got a fantastic team, and so it's wonderful to have that on the road. I've got my energy bar and gel, which is Mule Bar, and they've been with me since 2004, so I couldn't have done without their energy. I started with Twinkly, which is a live photo tracking program app that you can get on your phone and share races through photos, which is really cool. My sunglasses, which is CB. They're really, really cool colors, fun shapes. And then I've got a bunch of other people that help out with other fuel, pocket fuel. I've got some cool jackets, Nikita, suntan lotion, of course, with Aloe Up, and a bunch of other guys that I couldn't do without. So thanks to all of them.
All right, perfect. Anything else you want to plug?
No, that's perfect.
All right, cool. Well, thank you very much for your time, Anna, and good luck in San Francisco, and then enjoy your off season.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anna. Bye.
Good luck. Bye.